What are the moment I knew I have to get out of this relationship? Story 1, we were having this conversation about open relationships for the 10th time when it suddenly dawned on me that I never wanted to have this conversation again. I told him, I think you should whoever you want. His face brightened. You do? He asked incredulously. Yes, I said, it's obviously very important to you. So I'm going to be out by the end of the week, and then you'll be completely free to do as you please. That was the end. Story 2, when she screamed at our entire flat, me and 4 others, for letting the man in who was stalking her, or not kicking him out when we saw him in the living room. There was no man in the living room, nor did the man exist. Story 3, when I caught her in bed with a juggalo. I might have forgiven infidelity. We all make mistakes, and I've been tempted too, but a juggalo, game over. Story 4, when he cheated on me, got her pregnant, and then told me I should pay child support because I didn't put out I was 15, and that's why he had to go out and cheat on me. Story 5, I watched my best friend die horribly in an accident, was there when it happened, rode with him to the hospital in the ambulance, was standing there when the doctors pronounced him, waited there until the folks from the morgue downstairs came to get the body, then called his family and told them. That all took pretty much the entire night, and I had an exam the previous day, so I had pulled an all-nighter then as well. So by the end of it, I had been awake for about 49 hours, came staggering into my apartment at 6 o'clock a.m., saw my fiancé, and burst into tears. I told him what happened. He stared at me for a sec, then said, we were supposed to have a breakfast date with Chris and Annie in like an hour. Are you seriously going to bail on that? Yep, broke up with him that evening. When I woke up, have never regretted it. Story 6, my ex-girlfriend never really got along with my family. Too many minor things had happened that caused a strain in their relationship. There were 2 cases that led me to realize there was no way and that we would work out. One was when she told me, once we get married, you're stuck with me, and if you ever think of divorcing me, I will keep everything you ever worked for and make your life mind you. This was about 6 months into our relationship. Later on, she said, once we get married, you will no longer speak to your family, no contact with your siblings or your mother. I ended that relationship not long after that. Story 7, if I don't win this thread, I have to at least be top 3. When her multiple personalities were revealed to include a homophobic male, one who punched me after kissing her. True history, JPG. Story 8, we had been dating 3 weeks. She stole a key off my key into my apartment and made a copy while I was at work. When I got home from work that day, she had basically moved in. New carpet, pictures on my walls, her pillows all over my bed, and feminine products everywhere in my bathroom. Broke up with her the next day. Story 9, he told me I was only allowed to be friends with white people, and if he saw me talking to any insert racial slur here, he'd dump me. Then he started talking about how he needed me to have his white children. He was Hispanic, so I never really understood his logic on that one. Story 10, she poured a glass of water into my 360. Not because I was playing it too much or anything, there weren't any good games out that year, but because I walked away from an argument so we could both cool off, and she wanted to hurt something she knew I loved. These were days before I became a mechanic and literally saved for months to buy that 360. She knew that. Needless to say, she is long, long gone. And I replaced my fallen homie with a new version with built-in Wi-Fi. Gotta stay positive, D-Edit. I love you all. Seriously, internet hugs all around. Story 11, when I was grocery shopping one day and just stopped mid-track, realizing the man I wanted to marry was the one who thought I wasn't beautiful and called me fat and ugly and told me other girls were much more attractive than me. That with him I'd spend the rest of my life knowing I wasn't beautiful to the man I wanted to be beautiful for. I also realized how everything wasn't working between us, including our family life, and our relationship was a wreck on that day. Sadly, I stayed with him for several months more before I cut it off with him because I had no self-worth. Young, stupid love. Story 12, when I realized that I was actively avoiding going out with my friends because I knew she would inevitably cause a scene and ruin the evening. Just wasn't worth it anymore. Story 13, everything was okay until I actually married her. After that, things went downhill fast. The biggest problem was that I started to get sick constantly. I had always had good health up until marrying her. One day, everything came into focus when we had someone else went to use the mayonnaise in the fridge. She freaked out and literally ran across the kitchen grabbing out his hand. She calmly walked over and handed it to me, saying that I was the only one allowed to eat the mayonnaise. It was then that I realized she was probably intentionally poisoning me. Our relationship had always gotten better when I was sick and helpless. She was widowed when I met her. I can't help wonder if her late husband was her victim. After we had split, and I was waiting to file for divorce in Canada. You have to wait 1 year before filing for an uncontested divorce. She phoned me up out of the blue and wanted to know specifics about my life insurance policy. This came after a few months of no communication and with no small talk. For the next few weeks, I found myself looking over my shoulder wondering if she had hired a hitman to me. Sound crazy? Beside my life insurance policy, I found out that she would have been able to collect a second federal survivor's death benefit from the government. She would have been able to continue collecting her late husband's, and then mine. It sounds morbid, but I was worth more to her dead than alive. Story 14, working a new job. With a 1-year-old baby, still breastfeeding, my drive wasn't what it normally is. Phone bill comes in, $200 worth of phone charges. I sit him down, remind him that our budget was way too tight for that. Explain I don't have a problem with phone per se, but if we had $200 to blow, I'd let him get a couple of blow jobs from hookers if he needed to blow off steam that bad. But we don't have an extra $200 right now. He apologizes. We have a good discussion about getting our intimacy on the right track. Next month's cell phone bill is $800. It was higher than our rent at the time. We literally could not pay the bill. I found I actually could afford more by moving out. He spent more than he made even without the crazy phone charges. Story 15, when I threw him a surprise 21st birthday party and invited all his friends who all had a great time, as did he, until he drank a handle of Jack and got in the tub fully clothed, tried to drown himself, saying, "I'd rather die than spend another day with you." Mind you, I worked 3 jobs to keep our apartment while he sat home and played Call of Duty all day. Needless to say, I was out after that. Story 16, when I told him I didn't want to live with him because I wanted to finish school, and he told me a degree isn't important, and when I told him I thought we needed to talk because I was unhappy instead of talking with me and figuring it out, he took his Xbox from my room and left. That was the last time I saw him. Then his mom emailed me telling me I was an awful person. Winners. Story 17, this all happened on Skype. Only typing him, "I need to tell you something that's been bothering me." "What is it?" "Him, last time we had, I noticed you have a hair on your nipple. It really ruined the moment for me." "Me what?" "Him, yeah, it's really gross. Please pluck it." Also, I feel really disrespected and undervalued in this relationship because you don't try hard enough to be pretty for me. "Me, are you serious?" "Him, reasonable adults can take constructive criticism. I think the fact that you're angry with me shows that you're really immature." Yup, that was the end for me. Edit formatting. Story 18, after our 8-year relationship and 4 of those years going straight downhill, I asked him if he would try couples counseling. He said no, he was absolutely against it. That's when I told him we should break up. I later found out the reason why he was so against it, because then it would come out that he had been cheating on me for 5 years. Story 19, when I started having to pay the price for things her previous boyfriends had done, she would yell at me as though I was the one that hit her, never touched her in that way previous boyfriend had. She started trying to interrogate me because she was convinced I, like a different previous boyfriend, was cheating on her. I never cheated. Come to think of it, I ended a number of my relationships when I realized that women were running me through a gauntlet in reaction to their past romantic injuries. Hope you don't do this to the next guy you date. Your ex cheated on you, and that sucks, but it's not your next boyfriend's fault. Remember that. Story 20, I was living in Florida, homesick for New York, fighting with the crazy blonde girl I'd moved in with. Suddenly in the bathroom, she threw a right hook, I blocked it. She threw a left, I blocked that too. As I stood there holding both her wrists, she kicked me square in the 4 or 5 seconds I had before the pain kicked in. I threw her into a tight headlock. Together we fell to the floor of the bathroom, locked in combat, cursing and screaming at one another. Over her muffled screams, writhing beneath the toilet, I had a moment of intense, overwhelming clarity. As I stared curiously at the dirt and grime around the base of the bowl, a calm stole over me. It was at that exact moment that I knew the relationship was over. All of the fighting, all of the caring, all of the stupid I'd done to keep things going, it all seemed so totally absurd. Every ounce of desire I had to still be with her was completely gone. So I let go of my girlfriend and started laughing hysterically. My laughter took all the wind out of her sails. Instantly there was fear in her eyes. "What?" she asked. "Why are you laughing?" But I only shook my head and smiled. I was already thinking about whether I wanted to sell my motorcycle and fly home, or somehow drive it back to New York. Within days I'd sold my stuff and moved out. She begged and pleaded, of course. But the decision had been made. I'm still in New York and happier than ever, but I'll never forget the floor under that toilet. Story 21, when I was curled up in his arms, a bit teary over something and just wanted to be held, and he proceeded to reach around and start fondling it sounds funny writing it out, but at the time it really knocked some sense into me. He was constantly pressuring me for sexy times, and I always had to be on guard around him because he was all the time trying to cram his hands down my shirt or pants. I couldn't even kiss him without him trying to turn it into a full-on make-out session, what have you. I even had to start wearing baggy clothes around him because if I wore anything the slightest bit revealing, he would be all over me twice as bad. That is, when he didn't start bitching at me to take my clothes off the second we got behind a closed door. In some ways, it was my fault because I was struggling with realizing I wasn't attracted to men at all. So obviously he wasn't getting a lot of fun, but he really didn't respect my boundaries or my wishes. Say what you want about desperation or blue, but if I was trying to fool around with someone and all they did was stare at the ceiling and act really sad or out of it, I would stop. I'm now happily in a relationship with a female who respects me, and if there's anything going on, we both want it just as much. Edit, I think I need to clear some details up about this post, considering that I've gotten a lot of hatred today. For starters, I did not deny this guy release for 4 years straight. For about the first 5 years of the nearly 4-year relationship, I would say that I was definitely more than accommodating when it came to stuff. I never had intercourse with him, but we had oral and fooled around often. Just about every time we saw each other, he was my first long-term boyfriend, and I was very eager to please him and be the perfect girlfriend. However, eventually I started to question whether or not I was really as fulfilled in this relationship as I wanted to believe I was. He was cute, and I liked to make him happy, but I didn't really enjoy touching him, nor did I enjoy him touching me. And I realized this was abnormal. My interest in anything started to wane. I loved to cuddle with him, go on dates, do nice things for him and all that. But I just didn't want his penis on, in, or around me. I did not cut him off from activity. I would still get him off to be a good girlfriend, even though I didn't care for it. He had quit masturbating. It just doesn't feel as good as when you do it. So why should I bother, though? And it seemed what I was comfortable giving him wasn't enough. I would come over to his house early in the morning to spend time with him. I would always put together really cute outfits and do my hair and makeup so I'd look good for him. Not once did he ever say anything like, "You look so good today," or even "You look hot." The second I got in the door, he'd pester me until I got naked and gave him, and we could not do anything else until he got he'd throw a temper tantrum and get all in a huff, even if I said I would do it later. Then throughout the day, we would be hanging out, playing video games, doing couple stuff, and he would just randomly try to put his hands down my pants or my shirt, or push me up against a wall, or undo my bra strap, or come up behind me and start grabbing at my. Even when I told him no, I really didn't feel like it. He would beg me to please let him. Sometimes I would acquiesce, which made me feel like a cheap piece of meat. Sometimes not. For those of you who keep going on about how this is him trying to show his love, I assure you there was nothing loving or passionate about how he did this. It was just him being too lazy to himself off now and then and wanting to feel vagina. We even had a conversation once where I said, "Hey, I know I've been kind of dry lately, but I do really like a little bit of sensuality and affection that might put me a little more in the mood to do things with you. Did anything come of it?" And no, same old. Occasionally we would have fights where I would tell him how much it bothered me when he acted so pushy like that. He would make a big deal of sobbing and crying and saying how sorry he was for being such about it. But in a day or two, he'd always go back to his old ways. It made me feel unsafe around him. I felt like I was always on guard for when he was going to do it next. I wasn't trying to be a frigid. I just didn't like not getting any say when I wanted to be touched. This is the point where I should have broken up with him. I know that it was wrong to continue to be in a relationship with someone when I had no interest in him. However, I was not even 20, had not been in any other relationships, and we'd been together since right before I turned 16. So part of me, if I made a bad decision by not doing it immediately, I was new to the dating thing and was still trying to figure out my feelings. It's not like I woke up one day and said, "Oh, hey, I'm a lesbian, but I guess I'll just keep this guy around." I'm selfish. A part of me just really hoped my feelings would go away. I came from a town where homosexuality was labeled as immoral, sinful, and disgusting. I was terrified to entertain thoughts of being gay. If he wanted to turn around, he could have just as easily left me. Go yell at him. "How dare you not understand this lesbian and keep her tied down like that?" Eventually, I told him how I felt, and the relationship ended. Today, the ex and I are cordial terms, even though I'm still a little hurt over how I was treated. So it all worked out for the best, even though many of you seem to be offended that I dare waste his time this way. It wasn't a waste of time entirely. We had good times, made good memories, and we both agreed to this day that our relationship was excellent practice for future ones. Not to mention the fact that while I wasn't attracted to him in the way a member of a couple should be, I really did care about this guy, and at one point would have done nearly anything for him. I get that a lot of you believe that guys need and contact to live. I get that guys are known for being really horny, more hornier than girls. However, I feel like I'm the one in charge of my body, and I do not owe a guy, girl, or anyone of any kind just because they do X, Y, and Z for me. In a relationship, at least, should be about love and bonding, not about what only one person wants. I refuse to take the "well, he's a guy, he just wanted some and couldn't help himself" excuse. I didn't deserve the way he made me feel when he acted that way, and neither does anyone else. In a story, TL, my ex acted like A, and my feelings are valid, whether you agree or not. You may not get to read this, but I read this thread and you ask insightful and thoughtful questions and make kind comments. I commend you. Bluestocking16. Story 22, when he canceled our trip to Disneyland because his mother called from across the country and told him to drop everything and condo hunt for her. She didn't trust his ability to live on his own and decided to move near us to keep tabs on him. He didn't see why canceling our trip at the whim of his puppeteer was a problem. He was 27 years old. Story 23, it should have been when I found his massive folder of crotch-under-skirt down shirt pictures of various female friends. I understand being attracted to someone, but taking creepy little sneak shots of them and naming and categorizing them is weird and indicative of a warped personality. It should have been when he cheated on me with his ex-girlfriend, first time. It should have been any of the hundreds of times I caught him lying in bed with some other chick. And being a huge noob at the time, not being able to say anything to him about it for fear of him getting angry with me. It should have been after I realized that he didn't give about my well-being. But the desire to have a certain type of relationship is strong, and one tends to fall in denial. Maybe it should have been the first time that he started choking me and grabbing my face. Forceful physical pushes with his arm firmly pressed in my neck that would leave me feeling helpless while he felt smugly superior. The hitting would only escalate until he would throw me onto the bed and jab his elbows into my chest lungs, or lifting me off my feet by my neck and wringing it so hard I was losing vision. I had to draw blood with my nails for him to stop. Maybe the fact that he had another fling with his ex-girlfriend again, although she eventually ditches him to stay with her boyfriend-laws, or coming home with random hickeys, or sneaking out while I was at work, or a huge god list of red flags I ignored because I in love. And just, God, if I could have those issues go away, we could have the best relationship ever. I could and did get beaten up, and yet I kept coming back. Abusive relationships are no fun at all. The best prevention is to be confident with your own single solitary life, and to be able to know when to stand up for yourself and when to leave, if a guy or girl, because there are several noob, forever alone men here who will fall prey to a douchebag chick, makes you feel like she isn't worth spending your time on. Story 24, late to the party. But hey, when I was a sophomore, I had my first girlfriend. She was a senior and pretty attractive, if I do say so. I was feeling pretty good about myself. Anyway, we had been dating for about 2 months when we decided to hang out at her house for the first time. She gave me the grand tour of her house. We made out, went to her room, made out, and so on. She showed me some cool things she had collected over the years, and as we were going through her jewelry box, I noticed a particularly cool-looking ring. What's the story behind this one? I ask. Oh, she responds, that's just a ring from my fiancé. Turns out he was out of town for a while in Iraq. Story 25. This is probably going to get buried, but hey race mine, I was confronting my ex about his shady behavior. He started going to parties without me and confining me at home. And then he turned and slapped me so hard my head slammed against the desk and knocked me unconscious. I remember coming to, very confused as to why he was crying holding me, and apologizing over and over for killing me. That should have been a moment there. I stayed because I was young and stupid, thinking only my love and devotion would fix him. After being beaten black and blue, slapped around, being kicked to the ground, and several nose sears later, I finally realized I was trapped in an abusive relationship and how bad it really was. I have a permanent click in my jaw because one side dislocates and my knees sometimes shifts out of place because of what I stayed through. If you see someone in an abusive relationship or any hints of things like this, please help them. It's scary and mind-bending because of how it all starts. I love you. You're the only one in the world for me. I want you all to myself. I want to spend all my time with you. And only you because I cherish you. You're my world. Innocent and sweet, right? Don't you love me the most? Why are you hanging out with those guys? You already have me. Do you need attention from them? Well, even if you have known them longer than me, or if they're your friend's BFS, if you really love me the most, you'd only be loyal to me. I'm the only man that will love you this much for what you are. Why are you always out with your friends without me? I want to spend time with you, and only you. Why are you listening to them tell you all these negative things about me? They don't understand how deeply we love each other. They just want us to split up with me for themselves. They don't really care about you. I'm the only man that cares about you this much. Why would you want to go out this party? Dressing up all sexy is an advertisement to get guys. Are you saying I'm not enough? I thought you said we'd be together forever. So you don't need to dress up. I love you the way you are. I'm the only man that will love you this much for what flaws you have. Why are you not listening to me? I thought you loved me enough to care what I think and want. If you did, you would do things my way and stop being so stubborn. Your friends all left, so obviously they don't care. I'm the only guy who will love you, etc. List goes on. It starts off small. You don't think it's bad. He's just misunderstood. He's nice if you get to know him. My love will show that he's an okay guy. Then you start defending him, and even blindly at times. Why? Well, you love him, and you're supposed to be loyal to him, right? Everyone else just doesn't understand. Suddenly you're alone, very alone. You have no one else to ask if this is even normal reactions or fighting reasons anymore. Thus detaching from reality. You can't even talk to his friends normally because you're flirting with them. You start avoiding men in general because you don't want to get in trouble for being. You stop going out because he gets very angry if he doesn't know where you are or what you are doing. Even when you do normal things, you have to lie about it because you don't know what's okay anymore. It's even worse if you're living with them for financial support. You can't leave because you have nowhere else to go or anyone to go to. So if anyone is wondering why some people don't leave right away when violence happens, this might give a little insight into why I didn't. I regret it every day. I had to start my life over again. I'm doing things I should have done at 18 when I'm 23 now, and I feel like I missed out on all the things you do at that age, and now I'm too old. If you see someone going through this, please help them, or at least help them see that they have a way out. Abusive relationships are not always physically entrapping the victims. Most of the time it starts out with mental entrapment. Edited for both sides, since this is not meant to say only men are abusers. These signs apply for both sexes. Story 26. When she got so angry in the middle of an argument that she started attacking me, I decided to let her cool down, push her off of me, and stormed out of the house. She followed me outside and tried to hurl a cooler in my head as I left. The moment when I dodged the cooler, the only thought in my head was, well, this crazy, I'm gone. Story 27. When he told our almost 3-year-old daughter that he was going to stab her over a tantrum. He came home from work the next day, and I handed him a key to his new apartment. FTR, he's never physically harmed us, but still hugely out of line. Story 28. My girlfriend of over a year went to college. Was never affectionate for me, but I dealt with it. Then one time when I visited her, she stated it would make her uncomfortable to go to a hookah bar with me. When the previous weekend, she went to frats wearing a completely see-through shirt and tiny skirt. This, along with her cheating previously in our relationship, should have just ended it, then brought me to break up with her yesterday. Story 29. Me begging and now ex-boyfriend who was stumbling and slurring not to go back into a bar we had just left. His response was, "Get out of my way or I will break your neck." This guy knew he had a drinking problem. He had gotten DUIs, lost jobs, and ruined a lot of relationships with family and friends over the way he was when he was drinking. But I think he kind of enjoyed his having a reason to drink. Story 30. He explained that he has a biological imperative to be disgusted by me and others like me, and without breasts or childbearing capacity, am useless to him. Story 31. I dated a guy who used to take trips to Florida to meet his internet friends. Later, he bought a purple robe, and it turned out he was in a cult. He was actually pretty sweet, but it was annoying how I'd come home to him, constantly meditating in the dark for hours all the time. I realized I needed to break up with him when I went home for Xmas and saw all of my high school friends who were normal. He was a very nice guy, but we just didn't have much in common. Story 32. We had been dating for about 3 years and had just moved in together. One night, we went to a show, and we both had gotten quite trashed. I was laying limp in the booth, and a lesbian friend of ours was taking care of me, wiping the sweat off my forehead as we waited for a cab. When we get home, my ex lays into me about flirting with our lesbian friend. To prove that I don't love her, she locked herself in the bedroom and says she's going to kill herself. Being an idiot who believed her, I broke the door down. She then began punching me. I backpedaled until we were in the living room. I had enough, so I grabbed her by the arms and shoved her down on the couch. "Oh, that's it. You just assaulted me. I'm calling the cops." She and then locked herself in the bathroom. I just sat limp on the couch and waited for the cops to show up. Except she didn't call the cops. She called my mother at 2 a.m. When I sobered up and woke up, I decided it was time to go our separate ways. Story 33. When my mother said, "There is just something about that girl that I do not like." I usually take what my mom says with a grain of salt, except when it comes to my choice in women. She's been absolutely right about every one of them. Thankfully, she's as in love with my fiancé as I am. Story 34. In an argument, she threw a glass of grape juice at my face, glass and all. I dodged it. It hit our white wall and fell on our white carpet. I freaked about the staining. Then I realized that one, she made us buy and install white carpet, and two, she made me care about white carpet. I was so gone the next day. Story 35. When I realized I was ashamed to be associated with him, his awkwardness, refusal to get help for obvious Tourette's, or even acknowledge he has it, not the cussing kind, the weird noises in the throat and facial tics kind, while wanting to be an actor. Yeah, that's going to be fine. Nobody will notice. Stilted conversation, asinine behavior and comments, poor recognition of what is appropriate, and lack of personal hygiene, especially down there, made me miserable. Oh, and of course I would do anything to avoid with him. A combination of because he was awful and because of aforementioned lack of hygiene. Getting in a relationship at all was a huge mistake. I was lonely and fat girl flattered he was into me, but those should never be reasons why you get with someone. Now I'm in a great relationship, turns out I'm kinky as, and that's why most was so boring, and I've lost the extra weight. Story 36, when he said, I feel so lucky to be with you. I realized then that I just didn't feel strongly about him at all, and broke it off with him soon after. I realized that I sound like an absolute, but I figure it would be better for me to be honest than stay with him, even though I didn't love him in the same way. I felt awful because he was such a sweet person, but then it just felt more awful to mislead him any further that I felt the same. Story 37, I knew I had to get out of my last relationship. When he... Yes, Jesse, I know you're reading this. Quit looking at my Reddit comments to keep tabs on me. Geesh, annoying like this is why we broke up. Story 38, let me preface this story by admitting I had absolutely no self-respect at this time in my life. And this was my first serious relationship, which started in high school. We had been living together for about 4 months during college, and she wanted to break up. However, she didn't want me to leave because she just wanted to date other people to see what it was like instead of telling her to and asking her, hey, would you ever think that would ever be appropriate for either of us while we were still living together? I took the low self-esteem route and said yes. Nothing changed. We were still in the same relationship after this. We were still sleeping together, and we went on with our daily lives like the conversation never happened. I found out later, however, she was telling all her friends how we weren't together anymore. Things began to go south quickly, as they often do in this situation. Every time I felt I had had enough, I would tell her I was leaving. He would practically beg me to stay, and I didn't have to say no. I finally knew it was over when I heard her having with another guy in our house. This wasn't like I was out and then walked in and heard it. This was the middle of the day on my day off, and I was sitting on the couch in the living room. It was probably the single most painful and liberating experience of my life. I was gone 2 days after that. I vowed to never let anyone walk on me the way she did again. I'm so happy with the person I am today and the person that I'm with because I've found a good person I don't feel trapped by and wouldn't bat an eye for a second to tell her to if she said we're on a break. I say that because I know she would say the same thing. We both know we deserve to be treated well because that's how we want to be treated. When she started complaining about Mexicans, Story 39, when I realized she was an emotional vampire, Jesus Christ, that woman almost killed me. Edit, it's a pretty boring story. I don't normally date because I am extremely selfish and it takes an angel to bring anything good out in me. But I fell in love and all that. After a while, I realized I was better than her in every way and she used me as a mental scrubbing board. A scrubbing board that was never cleaned. She just always had something that I had to fix. I'm a fixer. It's what I'm good at. So I told her to go herself and got out. Haven't been in any sort of meaningful relationship since. That was purposefully vague. Story 40, when I was considering getting on antidepressants because I was so unhappy being married to him, I realized how up it was that I was considering medication just to tolerate our marriage. Story 41, after a month, he tells me I'm the one. And he's going to marry me. He had a 3-year-old son, but he hadn't even introduced me to yet. How can you say I'm the one when you don't even know how I treat your kid? Story 42, my boyfriend at the time wasn't letting me see any of my friends, and I wanted to play music with them, and I was listening to Death from Above, and I wanted to jam so badly that I ran home, got on the phone, and broke up with him, and went and played music.